The year was 2174. Humanity had stretched its reach beyond Earth, forging colonies on distant moons and planets in the solar system. But space, the vast, cold expanse that stretched infinitely, was not kind to newcomers. The stars were ruled by civilizations older, wiser, and far more advanced than humankind. The Galactic Council, composed of various alien species, had long considered Earth's burgeoning spacefaring capabilities a threat, though they had remained silent until now. Humanity's ambition, as seen from the Council's vantage point, was nothing more than a dangerous arrogance. The various species believed humans were unworthy of the stars, primitive, reckless, and unprepared for the complexity of galactic politics. Yet despite these warnings, humanity had pressed forward. On Earth's command, the Liberty, the first human deep space exploration vessel, was launched, captained by the fearless Commander Kara Hayes. The mission was simple: to reach the outermost edges of the solar system and beyond. It was supposed to be a moment of triumph, a symbol of humanity's arrival on the galactic stage. Instead, it would be the spark that ignited a firestorm. As the Liberty traveled through the vast, uncharted reaches of space, it crossed into a sector marked on human star maps as unclaimed. What the humans didn't know was that this sector was controlled by a powerful alien species, that Exarthan, a race known for their immense technological superiority and militaristic culture. The Exarthan had conquered multiple star systems, ruthlessly exterminating any who dared to challenge them. They had their own set of unspoken laws of the galaxy, one of which was that no one, especially humans, was to wander into their space without permission. The Liberty's sensors were tripped as soon as it entered Exarthan-controlled space. The ship's crew watched in disbelief as their communication systems were overridden. A booming voice rang out over their intercom. "Humans, you trespass on sacred ground. Leave this place, or we will show you the price of your arrogance." The message was not a warning. It was a threat. For a moment, Kara Hayes thought it might be a misunderstanding. Perhaps it was some sort of automated message, meant for another ship, but the alien fleet that materialized out of the darkness of space erased all doubt. The Exarthan ships, sleek and deadly, moved into position, encircling the Liberty. Kara's crew scrambled to prepare for the worst. "Captain, they're locking weapons," the comm officer yelled. Kara clenched her jaw, her eyes scanning the holographic map of the enemy fleet. There were at least a dozen Exarthan warships, each far more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. Panic flickered on the bridge, but Kara remained calm. She had trained for moments like this, and she would not falter now. "Prepare to jump," she ordered. But before the command could be fully executed, that Exarthan leader's voice boomed again, cold and unforgiving. "Leave now or face annihilation." There was no room for diplomacy. Humanity was a mosquito, buzzing before an unyielding predator. Kara hesitated, knowing that a retreat would mean the end of her mission, and humanity's hope of exploring the stars. Instead, she made a decision that would alter the course of history. "Deploy the experimental system," she ordered. "We're not backing down." It was a gamble, a dangerous one. The Liberty had been equipped with an untested weapon, a prototype cloaking, and EMP pulse generator. Designed to disrupt enemy electronics and render their fleets temporarily blind, it was a last-ditch effort in case humanity ever found itself facing an enemy with overwhelming firepower. With a deep breath, Kara initiated the sequence. The Liberty's cloaking field activated, and the ship vanished from the Exarthan sensors. A moment of stunned silence passed. And then, boom! The EMP pulse surged through the Exarthan fleet, a flash of blue lightning engulfing their ships. Systems failed, weapons deactivated, and the alien vessels stalled. For a brief, beautiful moment, the Liberty was free. Kara's voice cracked through the bridge's tense quiet. "All ships, move in. Full assault." What followed was chaos, swift, brutal, and undeniably human. In a matter of minutes, the Liberty and its small fleet of human craft began striking the Xarthan ships, exploiting their disorientation. The fight was desperate, but against all odds, humanity's ingenuity won the day. When the final Xarthan ship lay disabled, Kara's message echoed across the galaxy. "We're not leaving. Humanity is here to stay." And just like that, the galaxy knew humanity had arrived. But the price of this declaration was just beginning to be understood. One thing was clear: humanity had no choice but to fight. But who they would fight alongside, and who they would fight against, remained to be seen. The galaxy had made one fatal mistake, underestimating humanity's hunger for the stars. As humanity began to understand the weight of their newfound place in the galaxy, they quickly realized that their victory over the Xarthan had set in motion a chain of events they were ill-prepared for. The galactic powers were not merely interested in revenge. They were now engaged in a desperate struggle to maintain the status quo. Humanity's presence threatened to tear apart the fragile peace that had held the galaxy together for millennia. The Galactic Council, now united by fear of humanity's potential, ordered an immediate full-scale invasion of Earth and its colonies. The combined fleets of the Xarthan, Asteri, Rotar, and Qualians, each stronger and more advanced than humanity's forces, set their sights on the human homeworld. The first wave of this massive armada was already crossing the outer rim of the solar system, a harbinger of doom. Kara Hayes stood on the bridge of the Liberty, staring at the digital star maps flashing before her. Every line, every point of light, now represented a threat. The humans had one advantage: they had been underestimated. But as the enemy closed in, that advantage would not last forever. "Captain, we can't fight all of them. We've barely enough ships to hold Earth's orbit," said Lieutenant Marcus Holt, one of Kara's most trusted officers. The weight of the situation was heavy in his voice. "We won't have to," Kara replied, her voice cold and calculated. "We're not going to hold them back. We're going to strike first." Humanity, despite its technological advances, was still woefully outmatched. But the Liberty wasn't just any ship. It was humanity's most advanced vessel, equipped with the stolen Xarthan technology and the Loxian innovations. Kara had always prided herself on her tactical mind, and now she would need every ounce of that ingenuity. As the enemy fleet approached, Kara devised a plan, one that would take the enemy completely by surprise. The human forces would use unconventional tactics to weaken the invading fleet, exploiting the alien race's overconfidence. They would create traps, use guerrilla warfare, and take advantage of their knowledge of their own systems. Humanity was no longer a weak, fledgling species. They were the underdog, and the underdog was always dangerous. "We'll lure them into the rings of Saturn," Kara said, pointing to the holographic display. "The terrain will force them to break formation, making them easy targets. Once we've separated their forces, we'll hit them with everything we've got." The plan was a gamble. The rings of Saturn were treacherous and filled with debris, making them an ideal place to set up an ambush. But the risks were immense. Any miscalculation could lead to the destruction of their entire fleet. The first wave of alien ships arrived as scheduled, a vast swarm of warships filling the outer edge of Earth's space. At first, it seemed like the humans were retreating, their ships scattering into the vastness of space. The invaders were confident, assuming the humans would fold under pressure. Then, the trap was sprung. Human ships, camouflaged by Loxian stealth technology, emerged from behind the debris rings. The Xarthan were the first to be caught off guard. Their sensors were overwhelmed by the sudden appearance of the human fleet, and a chorus of alarms rang out across their ships. The Liberty's EMP pulse struck first, disabling a dozen Xarthan ships in an instant. The ensuing chaos among the enemy was immediate, but the humans didn't stop there. They moved in, quick and brutal, launching devastating hit-and-run tactics that left the alien forces reeling. "What are they doing?" An Asteri commander bellowed over his comm channel, watching helplessly as his ships were systematically taken down by what seemed like a never-ending wave of human craft. "They're using the rings to their advantage," one of his officers said, gritting his teeth. "We're losing control of the battlefield." The humans' guerrilla tactics were working. For the first time, the alien coalition was experiencing the terror of being outmatched by a force they had previously dismissed as inferior. The human fleet, small but cunning, began to dismantle the invading forces piece by piece. But it wasn't enough. The enemy's reinforcements were already on the way, and the humans' resources were rapidly depleting. Kara knew they could not hold their position forever. The clock was ticking. They had to make a decisive move before the full weight of the galactic powers descended upon them. "The enemy is calling for reinforcements," Lieutenant Holt reported, his voice tinged with urgency. "We need to end this now." Kara glanced at the tactical map, calculating the risk. That Exarthan flagship, a massive dreadnought, was on the outskirts of the battlefield, heavily guarded but vulnerable. If they could disable it, the rest of the alien fleet would lose its cohesion. "Prepare the final assault," Kara ordered. "We're going after the flagship. We take it down, and the rest will fall." The final battle was fast, chaotic, and filled with peril. The Liberty and her crew led the charge, taking down the enemy's defensive perimeter and fighting their way to the heart of the Exarthan fleet. The flagship, a towering warship, became their primary target. Kara knew that if they could cripple it, the entire invasion would unravel. In a brutal, high-risk maneuver, they succeeded. The flagship was disabled, and with it, the Exarthan fleet's command structure collapsed. The remaining ships surrendered or retreated into the void. But the victory came at a cost. Humanity had made its mark, but the galaxy had taken notice. There would be no going back. The fight for the stars was just beginning. Kara stood on the bridge, watching the silent stars stretch out before her. The Liberty had won this battle. But at what cost? The galaxy would not forget what they had done. The war was far from over. Humanity's victory at Saturn had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The alien coalition, reeling from their defeat, was not about to let humanity's defiance go unpunished. But the tides of war were shifting. As humanity's fleet scattered throughout the solar system, both allies and enemies watched in disbelief. The boldness of the human assault had awakened something in the galaxy. No longer were humans just another species to be dismissed. The Council's once unified front began to fracture. Some factions pushed for immediate retaliation, fearing that any delay would embolden humanity further. Others, more cautious, believed that a more subtle approach was needed. For now, that Exarthan had withdrawn, but the threat of a second wave of invasion hung heavy in the air. On Earth, Commander Kara Hayes knew that humanity could not survive on its own for long. The galaxy had become an arena of high-stakes political maneuvering, and human forces were outclassed. Despite their ingenuity and guerrilla tactics, their fleets were small, their resources limited, and the vast distances between systems made communication and supply chains a nightmare. If they were to have any hope of survival, they needed to form alliances, no matter how dangerous or untrustworthy. As if on cue, a new player entered the stage, the Loxians. Kara had been suspicious of their offer from the start. The Loxians had remained aloof, neutral, and enigmatic for centuries. Yet they had chosen now to reach out. Their emissary, Varix, had remained at the fringes of Earth's colonies, waiting for an opportunity to solidify a pact. The humans were desperate, and the Loxians had the advanced technology that could give them an edge. But at what cost? "Commander, I'm not sure we can trust them," Lieutenant Holt said, his voice steady but filled with concern. He had grown to respect Kara's tactical brilliance, but this felt like a dangerous game. Kara nodded, acknowledging his fears. She too felt the weight of the decision. She had seen what the Loxians were capable of during the battle at Saturn. Their technology was unlike anything humanity had ever seen, but it was clear they operated by their own rules. What would they ask for in return? "I know," Kara replied. "But right now, we don't have a choice. They're offering us something no one else can, access to their advanced weaponry, and cloaking technology. If we want to survive, we need to accept. The two of them stood before the holographic map of their solar system, staring at the expanding reach of alien fleets that still lurked beyond the edge of human space. The Xarathan might be temporarily beaten, but the galaxy was vast, and the Council was not about to forget this humiliation. Kara agreed to meet with Varix aboard the newly established Loxin flagship. The atmosphere was thick with distrust as she entered the command deck. Varix, whose molten silver skin shimmered under the artificial light, greeted her without ceremony. "You are bold, Commander Hayes." Varix's voice was soft but carried an edge. "You have forced the galaxy to look at humanity with new eyes. But be warned, our alliance comes with conditions." Kara didn't flinch. She had learned long ago that in space, alliances were a currency, rare, valuable, and fleeting. "What conditions?" "We will provide you with weapons, technology that will ensure the survival of your species, but in return, you will do something for us." Varix's eyes glowed faintly, a sign that something profound was at play. "There is a world, an ancient world, deep within Xarathan-controlled space. Its secrets are buried beneath the ruins of an old civilization. We believe it holds something of great importance. Find it for us, and you will have our full support." Kara's mind raced. An ancient world. Buried secrets. This sounded like more than just a simple request. The Loxians' motives were unclear, but their technological gifts were undeniable. Humanity was in no position to turn down such an offer, but Kara also knew the risks. If they failed to deliver, the Loxians might turn on them. "I'll need more details," Kara said, keeping her voice steady. "What exactly are we looking for?" Varix's face remained unreadable. "You will understand when you find it. Just know this, it will change everything. For both humanity and the galaxy." The deal was made. Kara agreed to send a team of her best officers, including Holt, to explore the mysterious world and uncover whatever secrets it held. In return, the Loxians would provide advanced cloaking devices, energy weapons, and the means to upgrade humanity's existing fleet. The humans had become pawns in a galactic game far beyond their understanding, but they were willing to play. As Kara left the Loxian flagship, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into something much darker than they realized. The Loxians were enigmatic, and their motives were hidden beneath layers of secrecy. But with the looming threat of a full-scale invasion and the galaxy's disdain for humanity's defiance, there was no other option. In the silence of the vastness of space, the humans were about to embark on a mission that would either solidify their place among the stars or bury them beneath the rubble of an ancient civilization long forgotten. The galaxy was watching, and humanity was preparing to make its next bold move. The question was, could they survive the consequences? Humanity's first true galactic expedition had begun. With the Loxians' mysterious offer in hand, Kara Hayes and her team prepared for a mission unlike any other. A small, elite strike force was assembled, including some of the best engineers, soldiers, and tacticians from humanity's fleet. Their destination was a world buried deep within Xarathan-controlled space, an ancient world, as the Loxians had described it, whose secrets were whispered through time like echoes in the void. The journey itself was perilous. The path to the planet was hidden within a nebula, a dense cloud of gas and dust that obscured both sensors and navigation systems. If the humans had attempted to navigate it without the Loxians' cloaking technology, they would have been detected by the Xarathan long before they reached their destination. Now, cloaked and silent, the human fleet crept toward their objective. In the command room aboard the Liberty, Kara stood at the helm, watching as the star charts slowly updated. Every blink of a distant star felt like a reminder of how far humanity had come, and how little they truly understood about the galaxy they were now part of. Approaching the outer edge of the nebula, Lieutenant Holt reported, his eyes glued to the scanners. "There's no turning back now. If this is a trap, We're walking straight into it. Kara's gaze hardened, her resolve steely. Then we make sure it's not. Despite her calm exterior, the weight of the mission pressed heavily on her shoulders. The Loxians had not been entirely forthcoming. They had given no concrete information about what exactly they sought on the ancient world, only that it was of great importance to both their kind and humanity's future. Kara couldn't help but wonder if they were being manipulated, if the so-called world of secrets would turn out to be something far more dangerous than anyone anticipated. They had to find out. Time was running out, and humanity had no other choice but to trust the enigmatic race that had just extended an olive branch, albeit one covered in thorns. As the fleet navigated deeper into the nebula, the stars around them disappeared into the thick cloud, leaving only darkness and the occasional flicker of distant light. The tension aboard the Liberty was palpable. Every creak of the ship, every flicker of a console, seemed to heighten their anxiety. They had no idea what awaited them at the heart of this strange, forgotten world. 3 days passed before they finally emerged from the nebula. The planet was a sight to behold, its surface covered in ruins, craters, and ancient structures that seemed to defy all logic. It was clear that no civilization had inhabited this world for eons. The atmosphere, thin but breathable, indicated that it had been uninhabitable for a long time. Yet there was something unmistakable about it, a strange sense of foreboding, like the planet itself was holding its breath. "We've arrived," Kara muttered, her voice barely a whisper as she looked at the screen. It wasn't a lush paradise or a thriving metropolis, as some might have imagined. Instead, it was a world scared by time, a place where the past had been buried so deep that its story had almost been forgotten. The structures they could see from orbit were massive, ancient temples, colossal statues, and broken monuments to some long-gone civilization. But there were no signs of life. Nothing moved. The world was dead. "We should send down a reconnaissance team first," Holt suggested, his voice tight with apprehension. "Something doesn't sit right about this place." "Agreed," Kara said. "We'll need to keep our eyes open. This mission is about more than just retrieving some artifact. The Loxians made it clear that whatever's here could change everything." Kara's team descended to the surface, touching down in a barren valley surrounded by towering stone spires. The planet's surface was littered with strange carvings, symbols neither human nor alien, etched into the ground like warnings. The air felt thick, heavy with the weight of centuries. They began their search. As they ventured deeper into the valley, the ancient structures loomed over them like silent giants, watching. In the distance, a massive crater could be seen, the remnants of what once might have been a monumental city or a place of great power. It was there they found their first clue. A stone doorway, half collapsed and overgrown with creeping vines, beckoned them forward. The carvings surrounding it were unlike anything seen on any known species language chart. There was something unsettling about them, an alien feeling, as though the very symbols were alive, shifting and changing before their eyes. "What is this?" One of the team members, Dr. Elena Cross, a xenolinguist, murmured. She approached the door, tracing the symbols with her fingers. The moment she touched the stone, there was a hum, a low vibration that rattled the air, as though the planet itself was waking. The door slowly began to shift, revealing a passage into the depths of the ruins. "Let's move," Kara commanded, her voice low. "Keep your weapons ready." The team moved in, the passage dimly lit by faint, ethereal lights embedded in the walls. They descended deeper into the heart of the ancient ruins, each step leading them further into the unknown. What they found would change everything, but not in the way they expected. At the end of the passage, deep within the planet's core, they discovered a chamber, vast and filled with technology older than anything humanity had ever seen. At the center, on a raised platform, lay a stone slab inscribed with more shifting symbols, and on the slab, a dark, pulsating core, the source of the strange vibrations. Kara stepped forward, And as her hand brushed the stone, a surge of energy shot through the room. The chamber shuddered. The planet rumbled. And then, in an instant, they knew. The secrets of the ancient world weren't just hidden here, they were alive. The moment Kara touched the stone slab, the world around her seemed to warp. A pulse of energy, darker and colder than anything she had ever felt, surged from the stone, vibrating through the chamber like a deep guttural hum. It was not just the physical sensation. There was something deeper, a mental whispering that reached out, probing her thoughts. The team froze, weapons raised, unsure whether to retreat or press forward. But Kara, her heart pounding, could not tear her eyes away from the stone. The glowing symbols on the slab had come to life, shifting and changing, twisting into patterns that seemed to almost speak. What the hell is happening? Holt's voice broke through the oppressive silence, but his tone was tinged with awe. We've triggered something, Kara said, her voice tight with urgency. We need to leave now. But it was already too late. The stone vibrated more intensely, and the chamber began to shake violently. The ancient structure groaned, its age-old foundations giving way to the force of the awakening power within. The walls of the chamber seemed to breathe, and the faint ethereal lights embedded in the stone flickered erratically, casting long, unnatural shadows across the room. Then came the sound, a low, guttural growl from deep within the planet itself, as if the world had been awakened from a long slumber. Everyone, back to the ship, Kara shouted, her command urgent. The rest of the team began to retreat, but the very air seemed to constrict around them. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and the ruins started to collapse, dust and debris falling in heavy, choking clouds. As they rushed toward the exit, Kara caught a glimpse of something beyond the stone slab, a vision, fleeting but undeniable, a vast, dark form, larger than any ship, moving through the depths of the planet. It had no shape, no recognizable structure. It was a shadow, a presence, something that should not exist. What was that? Elena gasped, her face pale. I don't know, Kara said, her voice barely audible above the chaos. But we need to leave now. Whatever that was, it's not something we're ready to face. The passage leading back to the surface had started to collapse. They could hear the rumble of rock and stone falling behind them as they sprinted, adrenaline coursing through their veins. With each step, Kara's mind raced. That presence, whatever it was, had felt alive. And yet it had been ancient, older than any species in the galaxy, possibly even older than the Luxins themselves. They made it to the surface, the dust and debris from the collapsing ruins clouding the air behind them. Kara could barely make out the silhouette of the Liberty in the distance, but she could hear the low rumble of something moving beneath the planet's surface. The ground shuddered again, and the atmosphere grew thick with a tension Kara couldn't shake. Captain, we've got incoming. Holt's voice broke through, his tone alarmed. Something's moving beneath us. Fast. It's massive. Kara's heart skipped a beat. She turned toward the horizon, scanning the landscape, but saw nothing. Then, from beneath the earth, there was a sound, a deep, resonating thrum that shook the ground with unimaginable power. Something was rising, something immense. The planet itself seemed to be coming alive, and it wasn't friendly. Get to the ship now, Kara barked as the ground quaked again. The horizon seemed to ripple with the approaching danger. Whatever had been awakened was not just some relic. It was something alive and dangerous, and it was coming for them. As they ran, a shadow emerged from the ground, a titanic figure that seemed to materialize out of thin air. A structure. No, a creature broke through the Earth's crust, its immense size blocking the sky. The thing was made of stone, metal, and something else, an otherworldly material that seemed to shift and warp with every movement. Kara's breath caught in her throat. The thing was massive, towering over them with a presence that felt more ancient and terrifying than anything she had ever encountered. Its eyes, if they could be called that, glowed with an unnatural light, a fierce, dark energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Move!" Holt screamed, pulling Kara out of her stupor. He grabbed her arm, yanking her toward the ship. But the creature's eyes locked onto them, and a blast of energy erupted from its massive form, sending shockwaves through the ground. The humans scrambled to reach the Liberty, their escape route now blocked by the behemoth. Kara's mind raced. The Loxians had known about this, had known what humanity was about to awaken. But why hadn't they warned them? What were they really after? With a final, desperate sprint, the crew made it to the ship's landing bay, and Kara gave the order to launch. But even as the Liberty rose from the surface, she could still feel the creature's gaze upon them, its presence etched into her mind. The ship shook violently as they ascended, the towering creature's roar echoing behind them like a thunderclap. "Get us out of here," Holt shouted, his hands flying over the controls. "We're not going to make it if we don't get moving now." Kara's eyes locked onto the planet below, the dark shadows of its secrets rising beneath them. The mission had gone horribly wrong, and yet something far more sinister had been unleashed, something that would not stay buried for long. And the Loxians, they had known all along. Whatever this was, they were not the only ones who had been searching for it. And now that humanity had stirred it from its slumber, there would be no turning back. The galaxy was about to change. The Liberty shot through the atmosphere with all the force the engines could muster, breaking free of the planet's pull and accelerating into the void of space. Kara's heart pounded in her chest as the massive creature's roar still echoed in her mind, vibrating through the hull of the ship as though it had somehow reached them in the very fabric of space. She gripped the command console, her knuckles white, her eyes scanning the view screen. "We're clear of the atmosphere," Lieutenant Holt reported, his voice strained. "But I'm not sure how long we'll stay that way." "Set course for Earth," Kara said, her voice steady despite the storm raging within her. "We need to regroup, assess what we found." The rest of the crew, shaken but silent, worked to keep the ship on course. No one spoke of the immense, terrifying creature they'd left behind on that forsaken world. The memories of its colossal form, rising from the depths, were burned into their minds. Yet no one dared acknowledge the unspoken truth. That creature was not just a relic of a forgotten time. It was a force, a living power that had once ruled the galaxy, and now it was awake, and it was coming. "Captain," Holt's voice broke through her thoughts. "We've got a problem. Something's following us." Kara's pulse quickened. "What do you mean, something's following us?" Holt's fingers danced across the console, bringing up a series of readings. The deep space scanners were lighting up, picking up a massive object, faster than any ship the human fleet had encountered. But what chilled Kara to the bone was the source. It was coming from the planet we just left. "How?" Kara breathed. "We're cloaked. How could it?" "It's not a ship," Holt interrupted. "It's the creature, or something like it. It's moving through space, faster than anything we've ever seen." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Whatever they had awakened was not confined to that planet. It was something far worse than just a biological entity. It was a force of nature, and now it was in pursuit. The Loxians had been right. The creature wasn't just important. It was a harbinger, a weapon, or perhaps an ancient predator. "We need to get to Earth, now," Kara barked, gripping the armrests of her chair, her mind racing with calculations. "Holt, can we outrun it?" Holt hesitated, his fingers trembling as he keyed in commands, adjusting the ship's thrusters and course. "I don't think so. It's already closing in on us. The creature, it's not just chasing us, it's tracking us. Its energy signature is unlike anything we've ever encountered." "Great," Kara muttered. She turned to the tactical officer. "Weapons. Do we have anything that can deal with this thing?" Lieutenant Ava Ramirez, who had been monitoring the weapons systems, shook her head. "We've got some advanced energy weapons, but nothing that will stop something like this. Our best bet is to outmaneuver it, but it's faster than we anticipated. If it gets close enough. She trailed off, the implication clear. We don't have time for this, Kara said, her voice sharp. We need to make it to Earth. We need to warn them. And we need to find a way to stop that thing before it reaches any populated systems. The ship trembled again, this time more violently. A low, ominous thrum echoed through the hull. The creature wasn't just chasing them. It was getting closer, and Kara knew there was no way they could outrun it forever. They had to come up with a plan, and fast. ETA to Earth is still 2 days, Holt said. But at the rate this thing is coming, we won't make it. It'll catch us before then. Kara's mind raced. The Loxians had known about this creature, but why hadn't they told them the full story? What was its true purpose? The galaxy had its own secrets, secrets that were buried deep within the folds of time, and humanity was now tangled in a web of deception and danger. Prepare to jump to hyperspace, Kara ordered. If we can get far enough, we might lose it in the deeper sectors. We need distance. The crew scrambled to execute the plan. The engines powered up, and the familiar hum of the Liberty's hyperspace drive filled the air. But just as the ship was about to engage its jump drive, the lights flickered. The sensors went dark for a split second. Something's blocking our drive. Ramirez yelled, frantic. We've been hit with a jamming signal, powerful enough to override our systems. No, Kara snapped. We're not stopping now. Get it back online. But it was too late. The massive form of the creature, now fully visible on their sensors, was closing in on them. It was an impossible size, a being of ancient energy, and its pursuit was relentless. With terrifying precision, the creature's energy blasts surged toward the Liberty, striking the ship's shields and sending ripples of distortion through the hull. Kara's stomach lurched as the impact rattled the ship. Holt, can we get to a nearby system? Somewhere it won't find us. I'm trying. But before he could finish, the creature let out a piercing screech that reverberated through the ship's entire structure. A wave of energy pulsed from it, slamming into the Liberty with the force of a dozen meteors. We're losing control, Holt shouted, his voice barely audible over the noise. The ship began to list, shuddering as the creature's energy continued to rip through the hull. It was happening. The Liberty was being pulled into its orbit. The galaxy's nightmare had awakened, and it was coming for them. Brace for impact, Kara shouted, adrenaline surging. The war was no longer just about humanity's survival. It was about stopping the awakening of something far worse than any of them could have imagined. And now, humanity's greatest test had only just begun. The screech of metal as the Liberty was rocked by the creature's energy blasts echoed through the ship. Kara's knuckles were white on the control panel as she fought to keep the vessel stable. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she knew there was no room for panic. If she didn't think quickly, they were all going to die. Systems are failing, Lieutenant Holt shouted over the growing chaos. Shields are at 30%, and we've lost primary propulsion. That thing's pulling us in. We're not going to make it to hyperspace. Kara glanced at the view screen. The creature, an ancient, terrifying presence of stone and shadow, was now directly in their path, its energy blasts ripping through the void toward them. The force of its power felt like a constant presence, squeezing the life out of the Liberty as it moved closer. Its dark form loomed, its glowing eyes narrowing on them, as if it were savoring their inevitable demise. Is there any way we can use the creature's own energy against it? Kara asked, her voice tight with the weight of their situation. Ramirez, working desperately to reroute power to the weapon systems, looked up with a grim expression. There might be a chance, but I'll need time. The energy it's throwing at us is overwhelming. Any weapons we fire would barely scratch it. Kara's eyes flicked back to the readouts on her console. The ship was barely holding together, and they were still being pulled closer to the massive being. There was only one option left, one that both terrified and exhilarated her. We need to trap it, Kara said suddenly, a thought forming in her mind. Can we trick it into thinking we're going into an asteroid field or a nebula? Holt looked up in disbelief. You want to lure it into the gravitational pull of an asteroid belt? That's a suicide mission. It's the only chance we've got. If we can get it close enough, we might be able to use the debris as a shield and disable its energy flow long enough for us to escape. I know it's risky, but it's the only plan we've got left, Kara said, her eyes fierce. There was a long silence as the crew absorbed her words. The situation was dire, but it was their only option. Holt nodded, understanding the magnitude of what Kara was asking. I'm with you, Captain, he said, a grim resolve settling over him. Let's do it, Kara said, as she turned to Ramirez. Start rerouting power to our maneuvering thrusters. We need maximum speed, now. Got it, Ramirez replied, fingers flying across the console. Kara issued the final command. Prepare to change course. All hands, brace for evasive maneuvers. The Liberty's engines sputtered but surged forward as the ship lurched violently in the direction of the nearest asteroid field. The crew braced themselves as the ship twisted and turned, narrowly dodging debris and asteroid fragments. The creature, relentless and seemingly unstoppable, followed them, undeterred by the hazards of space. Its glowing eyes locked onto the ship, and it charged after them with unnatural speed, firing more energy blasts that tore apart asteroids in its path. We need to push it harder, Kara said, her mind racing. They had to lead the creature directly into the heart of the asteroid belt, where the gravitational fields would create chaos. They had to trap it. Almost there, Holt said, his voice strained. I can see the gravitational wells. We're going to pull it right into them. Just as the creature closed the gap, Kara made the split-second decision to slam the ship into a sharp, abrupt turn. The Liberty spun, barely dodging a series of asteroids, but in doing so, they led the creature straight into the gravity well of the belt. The massive being's immense size and strange energy signature were now caught in the field. What's happening? Ramirez shouted. It's slowing down. The ship was still being battered by the energy surges from the creature, but its movements had become more erratic as the asteroids began to collide with it. Kara could see it now, struggling to adjust to the chaotic gravitational pull. We've got it, Holt shouted. We're in the sweet spot. The asteroid field's doing its job. We've got a chance to get the hell out of here. Kara felt a wave of relief flood over her. They were still in danger, massive danger, but they had gained some breathing room. The creature, now caught between the asteroids, was momentarily distracted by the debris crashing into it, and it was struggling to maintain its focus on the ship. But Kara knew this was temporary. They had only a short window. Ramirez, Kara said quickly, her mind racing, can you hit it with our main cannon? Disrupt its energy flow long enough for us to get away. Not a full hit, Ramirez said, her voice strained. But if I overload the cannon's power systems, I can launch a concentrated burst. It should be enough to weaken it, just enough for us to escape. Do it, Kara ordered, gripping the armrests of her chair. The ship rocked again, but this time, it wasn't the creature's attack. It was Ramirez's cannon, firing a concentrated burst of energy directly at the creature. There was a moment of eerie silence, followed by a violent explosion of energy as the blast hit its mark. The creature's form flickered for a moment, its glowing eyes flashing erratically before it seemed to waver, its energy field destabilizing. Now, Holt, Kara shouted, get us out of here. Without hesitation, Holt engaged the engines, sending the Liberty into full throttle. The ship surged forward, dodging massive asteroids and debris, as the creature floundered behind them, its form flickering like a dying star. Kara's breath was heavy, her hands shaking, as they shot into the darkness of deep space. The asteroid field was fading from the view screen, but the threat of the creature still loomed in the back of her mind. We've made it for now, Holt said, his voice hoarse with relief. Kara didn't relax. Not yet. They had escaped this encounter, but they had awakened something far worse than they could have imagined. And now, the galaxy would have to reckon with what humanity had uncovered, a force that would change everything. As the Liberty hurtled through space, Kara knew one thing: the battle was just beginning. The news of humanity's unexpected victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In the span of hours, every major galactic power learned of the Liberty's assault on the Tarthan fleet and their success. What had been written off as a dangerous, ill-advised mission had turned into the boldest, most audacious challenge to galactic order in millennia. The Galactic Council, composed of the universe's most dominant and advanced species, was in uproar. The Exarthan, typically implacable and proud, had been humiliated by a species they had written off as primitive. But the defeat wasn't just a blow to the Exarthan. It was a challenge to the very structure of the galaxy. If humanity could defeat a species as powerful as the Exarthan, what would stop them from challenging everyone? "Humanity is a virus," said Empress Yura of the Asteri Empire, a species with a centuries-long grip on interstellar politics. Her words were sharp and bitter. This could not be allowed to continue. They must be eradicated before they inspire more chaos. The Asteri Empire wasn't the only one to feel the sting of humanity's triumph. The Rotar, the highly intelligent and calculating race of galactic merchants, saw humanity as an unpredictable force, one that could upset their carefully balanced trade routes and monopolies. The Qualians, an ancient species of mystics, were horrified by the potential disruption to the spiritual balance of the galaxy. Together, the galactic powers convened to discuss how to handle this threat. They were not unified by a common fear of humanity's technological prowess. No, it was their unpredictability that terrified them. The humans were not like the other races, who had evolved with a rigid set of cultural values and traditions. Humans were willing to bend, break, or completely rewrite the rules to survive. That was something they could not tolerate. On Earth, Commander Kara Hayes and her crew were unaware of the swirling politics surrounding their success. They were focused on the aftermath of their battle. A shattered Tarthan fleet and a galaxy now fully aware of humanity's presence. But the victory was bittersweet. The alien message was clear: humanity's place in space would never be accepted without consequence. The human government, now fully aware of the immense galactic powers bearing down on them, rushed to accelerate their plans. In secret, they formed an alliance of their own, the Humanity First faction. A group of military leaders, scientists, and engineers, with Kara Hayes as their appointed leader, began working feverishly to ensure humanity's future in the stars. But while Earth scrambled to prepare for the worst, things were moving on the other side of the galaxy. An unexpected visitor arrived at the borders of the human colonies. The Loxians, a mysterious species with skin like molten silver and an aura of near omnipotence, made contact. Unlike the others, the Loxians had not joined the Galactic Council, preferring to remain isolated in their own star systems. They had observed humanity's rise, intrigued by their ferocity, and now they sought an alliance. The Loxians were powerful, ancient, and technologically advanced, but they were also secretive and difficult to read. Kara's commanders were skeptical. After all, humanity had just made enemies of the galaxy's most powerful factions. Could they trust a race that had kept its distance for so long? Yet, the Loxians offered something humanity desperately needed: the ability to refine their technology and fortify their fleet. They had been watching humanity for decades, and they saw potential. "What do you want in return?" Kara asked, as she met with the Loxian emissary, a creature named Verix, aboard a secure station at the edge of Earth's colony sphere. Verix's voice was cold, but there was an undercurrent of respect. "Your survival. Humanity is chaotic, but you are a force we have yet to understand. We have no desire for your destruction, but we must ensure the galaxy does not lose its balance. Join us, and we will help you rise to power. But beware, there are others who will not tolerate your presence." It was an offer Kara couldn't refuse. especially when a covert attack on a human colony by Xarthan raiders left Earth's leaders scrambling for answers. The Loxians offered the means to strike back at their enemies with technology that was light years ahead of anything humanity had ever known. But not everyone trusted the Loxians. The quiet whispers of dissent began to stir. Could the Loxians, who had so long stayed neutral, have their own hidden agenda? Kara knew there were no clear answers, but the stakes were too high to refuse. As humanity reluctantly accepted the Loxian offer, Kara could sense a dark undercurrent. The galaxy was beginning to change, and humanity's place in it was becoming more uncertain than ever. With the shadow of war looming larger,